Welcome, dear listener, to Napoleon Bonus Sleep Stories, where dreams come easy and nights are peaceful. I'm here to guide you through a gentle journey, a bedtime tale designed to calm your mind and ease you into a restful sleep. So, settle comfortably, close your eyes, and let our story unfold. Once upon a time, in a hidden valley nestled between lush, rolling hills, there existed a small village known as Sleepington. This tranquil hamlet was known far and wide for one remarkable reason. It was said to be the most restful place in all the world. Dawn tiptoed into Sleepington like a guest who knew everyone, was still dozing, and didn't wish to disturb a soul. Pale peach light filtered through mist that hovered above the cobblestone lanes, and the first low coos of morning doves drifted in slow, unhurried waves. Milo, having woken earlier than usual, lingered in that hazy space between sleep and wakefulness, mind balancing on a downy threshold. He thought of Eldora's story, the moonlit kingdom, the silver-threaded dreams, the gentle Queen Serenia, and felt a quiet warmth bloom in his chest. It was as though the echoes of last night's tale still drifted on the air, sweet as jasmine and every bit as calm. Stretching beneath a quilt of moss-green wool, Milo rose and padded to his window. Beyond the glass, he saw Eldora's broad shoulders etched against the paling sky, her leaves stirring in a breeze as soft as a hush. A sudden sense of invitation tugged at him, as though the old oak were beckoning him to step outside and witness something special. He pulled on a knit sweater, tiptoed past his still slumbering cat, and slipped from his cottage with careful steps, mindful not to wake the village. As Milo crossed the dew-kissed grass, he noticed a subtle perfume weaving through the air, lemon balm, lavender, and something faintly sweet that he couldn't name. It reminded him of bedtime teas and whispered lullabies. The fragrance seemed to drift from beyond the eastern stone wall, the very edge of the valley where the hush-petal vines grew. Once each season, the villagers of Sleepington gathered the pale blue hush petals to dry and stitch into pillows so light they felt like cool clouds upon the cheek. The harvest was due in another fortnight, yet the aroma was already calling. Under Eldora's boughs, Milo paused. The oak's bark was warm from yesterday's sunlight, and when he pressed his palm against it, the faint vibration of rooted lullabies hummed up his arm. "Good morning, dear Milo," Eldora said, her voice as gentle as dawn. "I see curiosity twinkling behind your eyes. Would you like to wander a little farther today? Beyond the hush-petal wall, there are stories whispered by the river Rillabelle, stories that might bring deeper rest this night." Milo nodded, heart thumping with quiet excitement. He was not alone in his love for calm and wonder. The entire village prized peace as their greatest treasure. Yet the idea of strolling out of familiar lanes and into the open meadows excited him like the first page of a fresh diary. Encouraged by a rustle that sounded remarkably like a grandmother's soft laugh, he set out toward the eastern border. The path was lined with early blooming star flowers that sparkled silver even in daylight, and every so often a hush-petal vine curled upward, offering a single unopened bud the color of a robin's egg. A brooklet murmured near Milo's feet, its water smooth as glass and clear as quiet conversation. He paused to cup the coolness and sipped. Instantly, tension he hadn't known lingered in his shoulders, flowed away like loosened ribbon. Soon the meadows broadened, revealing a ribbon of river that glimmered beneath the new sunlight. This was Rillabelle, the dream-singing river. Local lore said that after dusk, if one leaned close to her water, they could hear the distant echo of every dream Queen Serenia had ever spun. Milo crouched on a flat stone, listening, but the morning chorus was gentler, more like the lull of a mother humming over a cradle. "Welcome, gentle wanderer," Rilabelle gurgled, her current swirling around lilac-tinted pebbles. "Have you come to trade your thoughts for calm?" Her voice sounded like water over silk, each syllable a cool fingertip against the pulse. Milo, who had grown up in Sleepington's hush, felt no surprise that the river could speak. Rather, he bowed his head in gratitude. "I've come to listen," he said, "and perhaps to learn how to keep my mind still when worries flutter like restless birds." "Then cast your worries upon my surface," Rilabelle replied, "and watch them drift downstream." Milo imagined each of last night's fluttering thoughts as tiny paper boats, questions about tomorrow, gentle doubts about his place in the wide world, and one by one he set them afloat. He watched until the ripples carried them around a bend where willows swept low. In their place floated a hush so pristine it felt like the space between heartbeats. When Milo looked up, he noticed a stone path etched into the far bank, half hidden by reeds. Rilabelle whispered, "Follow the stones, and you will meet Grom of the Quiet Tread. He is a stone giant who has guarded dream echoes for centuries. But fear not, his heart is softer than any pillow stuffed with hush petals." Milo thanked the river, crossed a small wooden footbridge, and stepped onto the sun-warmed stones. Each was inscribed with spiraling sigils that glowed faintly, as though lit from within by moonlight trapped in crystal. The deeper he walked into the meadow, the more time seemed to stretch into a pleasant haze. Hours unfurled like silk banners, glimmering and slow. Finally, at a rise where wisteria tangled overhead in lavender curtains, Milo met Grom. The giant sat upon a boulder carved to resemble a colossal armchair. His skin looked like weathered granite sprinkled with quartz, yet moss and tiny wildflowers sprouted lovingly from the grooves between his joints. His eyes, two moon-shaped stones, opened the moment Milo's foot crunched a shy twig. "Little traveler," Grom rumbled, voice deep but as unthreatening as distant thunder on a summer's day. "You walk the dream path. Do you come seeking knowledge, or do you seek the comfort of stillness for its own sake?" Milo bowed. "Both, if they'll have me," he admitted, cheeks warming. "I wish to carry the quiet of Sleepington with me always, even when worries visit." Grom chuckled, a sound like pebbles tumbling, but smoothed by water. "Then sit," he offered, gesturing to a cushion of moss on a stone slab. "And I shall tell you a story older than Lunaire, older even than the oak Eldora." Milo settled onto the cool moss. A breeze brought scents of chamomile and warm earth. Grom began. "Long ago, before language stitched itself into words, there dwelled a restless wind named Vera. She whipped through valleys so swiftly that the leaves she passed remained forever trembling. No creature could rest when Vera howled, and even the moon tired of lulling the world to sleep after each of her tantrums. So the moon sought me, a young giant then, and said, 'Grom, carve a flute from silence itself, so I may give Vera a gift, a melody she cannot resist dancing slowly to.' I journeyed to the deepest cavern, took a shard of primordial quiet, and hollowed it with patience alone. When Vera next sprinted across the sky, the moon played the flute. The music was so gently compelling that Vera slowed, her frenzy unraveling into languid spirals. From that night on, she became a soft breeze, and the world learned the miracle of stillness. Grom leaned back, eyes shining. Silence, child, is not an absence, but a beautiful instrument. When you listen deeply enough, you hear its song. That song soothes not by erasing sound, but by holding space for every gentle note. The flutter of wings, the sigh of grass, your own steady breath. Milo absorbed the tale, feeling as though his bones had grown lighter. "May I learn to play that flute?" he asked, half hoping and half marveling at his boldness. Grom smiled a slow, starlit smile. "You have already begun. Every time you pause and notice the hush between heartbeats, you practice its melody. Now, before you go, I grant you a stone token, smooth as moon glass. When you rub it between finger and thumb, it will remind you of the spaces between thoughts." He extended a palm large as a table. Inside, a polished stone gleamed pale blue. Milo accepted it with reverence, bowing in gratitude. "Thank you, Grom of the Quiet Tread." Grom nodded. "Follow the wisteria path east until the air smells of night jasmine even beneath the sun. There, you will find Celestine's garden, and perhaps the queen you know from Eldora's story. The day unfolds like a lullaby, verse by verse." Milo set off once more, mind clear as dawn reflected in still water. The wisteria parted to reveal rolling hills dotted with billowing white sheep, so content they hardly bothered to bleat. Overhead, the sky looked washed with pearl. Every step seemed to tap a rhythm older than song. Heel, toe, breathe in. Heel, toe, breathe out. Soon he sensed that jasmine fragrance, sweet yet somehow cooling to the soul, as though each petal carried a drop of lunar dew. He rounded a curve and found Celestine's cottage, a quaint, round-roofed dwelling, ringed by trellises heavy with star-shaped blooms. Smoke drifted from the chimney in lavender wisps, smelling faintly of clove and vanilla. Celestine stood by her gate, silver hair pinned loosely, eyes crinkled with delight. "Ah, young Milo," she greeted, naming him though they'd never met. "Eldora's leaves rustled word of your coming, and look who arrived just moments before you." She stepped aside to reveal Queen Serenia herself, her midnight blue cloak embroidered with tiny crescent moons that shimmered when sunlight grazed them. Milo's breath caught. Serenia looked kinder than any portrait could capture. Serenity made flesh. She offered Milo an embrace warm as cashmere. "You've traveled well," she said, voice like low chimes. "And Grom entrusted you with a token. May I see?" Milo showed the moonglass stone. Serenia nodded approvingly. "That is a rare gift, child. It will serve you whenever thoughts buzz too loudly. Now, Celestine is brewing a new tea, the Twilight Bloom Blend. It's meant for the upcoming Hush Petal Festival, but I think a first tasting is in order." Inside the cottage, gentle lamplight flickered, casting shadows like soft feathers. Celestine lifted a small copper kettle, whose spout sang even before steam rose. She dropped delicate buds into a wide bowl. Hush petals, night jasmine, a twist of chamomile, and silvery thyme leaves kissed by dew. As water poured, a fragrant cloud drifted through the room. Milo inhaled. With every breath, thoughts slowed, aligning like seashells in ordered rows. Over tea, Serenia spoke of Lunaire's latest tranquility projects, moonlight gardens, where children learned mindful breathing, libraries where stories whispered themselves aloud in calming tones, fountains tuned to lullabies. Celestine explained that Sleepington's hush-petal pillows and Lunaire's dream weave would soon be exchanged, so both places might share new forms of comfort. Milo, sipping twilight-colored liquid, felt comfort bloom in layers, warmth on tongue, sweetness on breath, weightlessness on mind. He realized calm wasn't a destination. It was a fragrance, a flavor, a song carried in pocket and heartbeat. After tea, Serenia rose. "Milo," she said, "would you guide me back to Sleepington? I wish to meet Eldora and feel the hush-petal vines for myself." Milo, heart fluttering with honor, agreed. Celestine packed jars of tea and bundles of buds, placing them into Serenia's satchel. At the threshold, she pressed a small violet-tinted crystal into Milo's palm. "A star shard," she whispered. "Hold it at night and watch it glow brighter with every calm breath you draw." The sun had climbed higher, yet its rays felt gentle, as though wrapped in gauze. Milo and Serenia set off down the soft path. All around, meadowlarks trilled songs so smooth they seemed part of the quiet rather than intrusions upon it. Serenia taught Milo a walking meditation. Step, pause, breath. Step, pause, gratitude. By the time the hush-petal wall appeared, Milo's mind was clear glass. They entered Sleepington as the afternoon unfolded like the slow turning of a music box key. Villagers looked up, eyes shining. Though none had met the queen, her calm presence felt familiar, as if every restful dream had suddenly manifested in daylight. Eldora's leaves trembled with delight. "Welcome, Queen Serenia," the oak said, voice carrying both honor and maternal warmth. "We are humbled." Serenia bowed, cloak pooling like midnight water at her feet. "The honor is mine," she replied, resting a palm on Eldora's trunk. "Your stories travel farther than you know." A hush-petal vine unfurled, revealing an unusually large bud. Serenia plucked it carefully and cupped it in both hands. She whispered a blessing. "May those who rest upon your petals journey to shores of peace." The bud shimmered, then slowly opened into full bloom, releasing a breath of perfume so soothing it slowed every pulse in earshot. That evening, Sleepington prepared a welcoming feast. But true to their nature, it was a feast of quiet delights. Warm oat breads with honey butter, bowls of lavender-infused soup, pastries filled with chamomile cream. Children chased fireflies, whose tiny lanterns winked like distant stars. Eldora served as the heart of the village circle, her broad branches strung with lanterns fashioned from moonlit paper. When dusk slid into night, Serenia stood beneath Eldora and addressed the gathering. "Dear friends of Sleepington," she began, her voice as soft as starlight on still water. "Tonight, I would weave a dream not only for Lunaire, but for all who dwell in gentle valleys and quiet hearts." She produced her silver loom, small enough to fit in her lap, yet shimmering with power. Threads of moonlight cascaded downward like silk ribbons. Serenia closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Milo, seated cross-legged near the front, found himself matching her breathing without instruction. In 6 counts, hold for 2, out 8 counts. The hush-petal bud she had opened earlier rested on a pillow beside him. releasing fragrance in slow waves. All around, villagers followed the queen's breath until the night itself seemed to inhale and exhale. As Serenia wove, images formed in the air above the loom. A river shimmering with reflected constellations, a giant whose mossy beard concealed flowers, an oak whose roots wrapped the world in lullabies, a moon pouring silver calm upon sleeping valleys. Each image dissolved into silvery dust that floated outward, settling on shoulders, hair, upturned palms. Where the dust touched, muscles unclenched, foreheads smoothed, worries dissolved like chalk in rain. The final image Serenia wove was a great, open sky where words fluttered like gentle moths. They spelled a message visible to every heart. Peace lives in the space you create for it. The message glowed brighter, then gently faded, leaving its meaning etched on memory. When the weaving finished, the silver threads returned to the loom, now shimmering with new hues. Soft rose from Eldora's evening light, pale aqua from Rilabelle, violet from Celestine's jasmine, golden taupe from Sleepington's hush petals. Serenia set the loom in Eldora's hollow as a gift. "May this loom remind you," she said, "that stories and dreams are bridges we build toward serenity." One by one, villagers drifted toward their homes, footsteps so soft they barely kissed the grass. Milo remained beneath Eldora, gaze lifted to a sky bursting with velvet dark and diamond stars. Serenia touched his shoulder. "Keep the token and the star shard close," she advised. "Whenever your mind stirs, breathe into the quiet they hold." "Will you return?" Milo asked. "Whenever the moon is bright and hearts call for stillness, I will be near," Serenia promised. With that, she stepped into a silver beam and slowly dissolved like morning mist, leaving only a faint note of jasmine and the memory of calm. Milo pocketed his moonglass stone, then opened his hand to study the star shard. It pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of his breath. He placed it over his heart. Warmth radiated outward, as though a lantern had been lit within his chest. Eldora lowered a branch, its leaves brushing Milo's hair. "Rest now, young dreamer," she murmured. "You have walked far in a single day, farther than many travel in dreams. Let the night cradle you." Milo yawned, heavy-eyed, and made his way home. Sleepington lay hushed in twilight. Windows flickered with candles, chimneys puffed threads of lavender smoke, and somewhere a lullaby drifted, played on a reed flute that might have been carved from silence itself. In his cottage, Milo placed the star shard upon his bedside table and slipped under his quilt. He remembered Grom's story of Vera, the restless wind. He imagined the moon's silent flute playing a melody of slow circles. He pictured each breath as a note and each pause between breaths as the sweetest refrain. The hush-petal perfume still clung faintly to his sweater sleeves, and it mingled with the cat's soft purr now blooming at his feet. Milo let his mind wander across the memories of the day like a boat drifting on calm water. Rilabelle's shimmering song, Grom's deep eyes, Celestine's twilight tea, Serenia's moonlit loom. Each memory settled into place like feathers inside a pillow, layering softness upon softness until thought itself became plush. He smoothed his pillow, set his moonglass stone beneath it, and closed his eyes. And there, dear listener, is where our journey slows, but does not end. For you now travel beside Milo on this gentle river of rest. El texto continúa con la meditación guiada y el cierre final. Si necesitas grabarlo, Esta última parte ocupará poco más de un minuto adicional según el ritmo de lectura. When dusk slid into night, Serenia stood beneath Eldora and addressed the gathering. "Dear friends of Sleepington," she began, her voice as soft as starlight on still water. "Tonight, I would weave a dream, not only for Lunaire, but for all who dwell in gentle valleys and quiet hearts." She produced her silver loom, small enough to fit in her lap, yet shimmering with power. Threads of moonlight cascaded downward like silk ribbons. Serenia closed her eyes and breathed deeply. Milo, seated cross-legged near the front, found himself matching her breathing without instruction. In 6 counts, hold for 2. Out 8 counts. The hush petal bud she had opened earlier rested on a pillow beside him, releasing fragrance in slow waves. All around, villagers followed the queen's breath until the night itself seemed to inhale and exhale. As Serenia wove, images formed in the air above the loom. A river shimmering with reflected constellations. A giant whose mossy beard concealed flowers. An oak whose roots wrapped the world in lullabies. A moon pouring silver calm upon sleeping valleys. Each image dissolved into silvery dust that floated outward, settling on shoulders, hair, upturned palms. Where the dust touched, muscles unclenched, foreheads smoothed, worries dissolved like chalk in rain. The final image Serenia wove was a great open sky where words fluttered like gentle moths. They spelled a message visible to every heart. Peace lives in the space you create for it. The message glowed brighter, then gently faded, leaving its meaning etched on memory. When the weaving finished, the silver threads returned to the loom, now shimmering with new hues. Soft rose from Eldora's evening light, pale aqua from Rillabelle, violet from Celestine's jasmine, golden taupe from Sleepington's hush petals. Serenia set the loom in Eldora's hollow as a gift. "May this loom remind you," she said, "that stories and dreams are bridges we build toward serenity." One by one, villagers drifted toward their homes, footsteps so soft they barely kissed the grass. Milo remained beneath Eldora, gaze lifted to a sky bursting with velvet dark and diamond stars. Serenia touched his shoulder. "Keep the token and the star shard close," she advised. "Whenever your mind stirs, breathe into the quiet they hold." "Will you return?" Milo asked. "Whenever the moon is bright and hearts call for stillness, I will be near," Serenia promised. With that, she stepped into a silver beam and slowly dissolved like morning mist, leaving only a faint note of jasmine and the memory of calm. Milo pocketed his moonglass stone, then opened his hand to study the star shard. It pulsed gently, matching the rhythm of his breath. He placed it over his heart. Warmth radiated outward, as though a lantern had been lit within his chest. Eldora lowered a branch, its leaves brushing Milo's hair. "Rest now, young dreamer," she murmured. "You have walked far in a single day, farther than many travel in dreams. Let the night cradle you." Milo yawned, heavy-eyed, and made his way home. Sleepington lay hushed in twilight. Windows flickered with candles, chimneys puffed threads of lavender smoke, and somewhere a lullaby drifted, played on a reed flute that might have been carved from silence itself. In his cottage, Milo placed the star shard upon his bedside table and slipped under his quilt. He remembered Grom's story of Vera, the restless wind. He imagined the moon's silent flute, playing a melody of slow circles. He pictured each breath as a note, and each pause between breaths as the sweetest refrain. The hush-petal perfume still clung faintly to his sweater sleeves, and it mingled with the cat's soft purr now blooming at his feet. Milo let his mind wander across the memories of the day like a boat drifting on calm water. Rillabelle's shimmering song, Grom's deep eyes, Celestine's twilight tea, Serenia's moonlit loom. Each memory settled into place like feathers inside a pillow, layering softness upon softness until thought itself became plush. He smoothed his pillow, set his moon-glass stone beneath it, and closed his eyes. Soft as velvet night, sleep folded over Milo like a wing. Within moments, the hush-petal perfume carried him beyond ordinary dreaming. He found himself afloat on Rillabelle once more, though now the river had widened into a silver mirror, its surface unbroken by current. At the bow of a small moonlit boat stood Celestine, lantern of night-blooming jasmine in hand. "Come," she murmured, voice flowing like tea into porcelain. Milo stepped aboard. The craft drifted without oar or sail, guided only by the star shard pulsing at his chest. Constellations reflected beneath them as clearly as overhead. It felt as though they journeyed through two skies at once. Far ahead rose alabaster arches, the temple of quiet echo, built on an island of white lilies. Tiny fireflies circled the columns in slow spirals, sketching invisible lullabies in the dark. When the boat kissed the lily shore, Celestine motioned Milo forward. "Within these halls," she whispered, "every gentle word ever spoken comes to rest." Marble corridors opened wide, yet their silence felt alive, like a held breath. Each step Milo took awakened a soft chime, the sound dissolving before it could bounce back. A perfect echo, caught and comforted. Wall niches held crystal shells. Inside each one shimmered an opalescent wisp. A mother's good night, a friend's quiet encouragement, a lover's promise kept. "Place your worries here," Celestine suggested, offering a vacant shell. Milo cupped invisible concerns, fears of not belonging, doubts about tomorrow, and exhaled them into the shell's heart. They settled as a pale fog, then brightened, metamorphosing into a warm pearl of calm. The shell's lid closed with the softness of eyelids meeting sleep. Milo realized that even unease could become a lullaby when embraced with patience. Celestine smiled. "Nothing leaves you, child. It merely transforms." She guided him to a wide balcony where moonlight flowed like milk down marble steps. The breeze carried the distant scent of chamomile fields and, fainter still, the cedar-sweet smoke of Sleepington's cottages. Milo's eyelids fluttered, and the temple faded into gentle dark. Soft as velvet night, sleep folded over Milo like a wing. Within moments, the hush-petal perfume carried him beyond ordinary dreaming. He found himself afloat on Rillabelle once more, though now the river had widened into a silver mirror, its surface unbroken by current. At the bow of a small moonlit boat stood Celestine, lantern of night-blooming jasmine in hand. "Come," she murmured, voice flowing like tea into porcelain. Milo stepped aboard. The craft drifted without oar or sail, guided only by the star shard pulsing at his chest. Constellations reflected beneath them as clearly as overhead. It felt as though they journeyed through two skies at once. Far ahead rose alabaster arches, the temple of quiet echo, built on an island of white lilies. Tiny fireflies circled the columns in slow spirals, sketching invisible lullabies in the dark. When the boat kissed the lily shore, Celestine motioned Milo forward. "Within these halls," she whispered, "every gentle word ever spoken comes to rest." Marble corridors opened wide, yet their silence felt alive, like a held breath. Each step Milo took awakened a soft chime, the sound dissolving before it could bounce back. A perfect echo, caught and comforted. Wall niches held crystal shells. Inside each one shimmered an opalescent wisp. A mother's good night, a friend's quiet encouragement, a lover's promise kept. "Place your worries here," Celestine suggested, offering a vacant shell. Milo cupped invisible concerns, fears of not belonging, doubts about tomorrow, and exhaled them into the shell's heart. They settled as a pale fog, then brightened, metamorphosing into a warm pearl of calm. The shell's lid closed with the softness of eyelids meeting sleep. Milo realized that even unease could become a lullaby when embraced with patience. Celestine smiled. "Nothing leaves you, child. It merely transforms." She guided him to a wide balcony where moonlight flowed like milk down marble steps. The breeze carried the distant scent of chamomile fields and, fainter still, the cedar-sweet smoke of Sleepington's cottages. Milo's eyelids fluttered, and the temple faded into gentle dark. Milo next stood beneath a canopy of night sapphire leaves. From the branches peered wide golden eyes, Oriel, the owl of quiet echoes. Her feathers mirrored starlight, each plume tipped with a drop of dusk. "Little dream wayfarer," Oriel hooted softly, "will you learn the art of slow remembering?" She unfurled one wing, revealing a single silver quill. "Right in the air, the moments that made you feel safe today." Milo traced letters of light, Eldora's rooted hum, Grom's deep chuckle, Serenia's loom, Celestine's tea. Each word became a floating feather, drifting upward to settle among Oriel's plumage. "In keeping gentle memories close," the owl explained, "you weave armor softer than silk, but stronger than fear." She encouraged Milo to breathe with her. Inhale to the lift of a wing, pause at its peak, exhale as feathers settled. Together, they created a rhythm like ocean tides slowed to a heartbeat. Then Oriel gifted him the quill. "When morning arrives," she said, eyes glimmering like twin moons, "write kindness into every breath." She pointed her beak toward a luminous archway where dawn rose light seeped through. Time to journey back. Milo bowed, pressing the quill to his heart. As he walked, the path beneath him formed from soft cloud, each step lowering him closer to waking. Yet his mind remained wrapped in the hush Oriel taught, a downy mantle woven from remembered comfort. Cloud steps gave way to a meadow, bathed in pearly pre-dawn glow. There waited Vera, once the restless wind, now a breeze of honeyed coolness. She circled Milo playfully, scattering dew like tiny prisms. "We meet at last," she whispered around him, voice a sigh under a willow. "Shall we dance the spiral breath together?" She swirled upward, tracing gentle loops. Milo mirrored the motion with his lungs. Draw air in a widening spiral from belly to chest. Pause. Release in a narrowing coil back to center. With each cycle, his thoughts traced the same pattern. Broad curiosity inhaled, distilled calm exhaled. The meadow blurred into halos of color. Vera guided him toward a standing circle of translucent stones, singing in low harmonic chords. "These are the harmonic quiet," she said. "Touch one." Milo pressed a palm to a stone. It resonated like the lowest note of a cedar flute, vibrating through bones into marrow, until even the spaces between cells felt still. The wind lulled. Vera's voice thinned like mist in sunrise. "Remember, traveler, breath is a compass. When thoughts scatter, spiral home." A soft gust kissed Milo's forehead, and she was gone, leaving only the hush of expectant dawn. A pale glow slid across Milo's closed eyelids. He stirred in his real bed, cat curled warm at his feet. Outside, the first thrush trilled a single crystal note. Milo rose quietly, wrapping his moss-green quilt about his shoulders, and padded to the door. Eldora stood silhouetted against rosy clouds. Dew caught on her leaves sparkled, like the echo shells of the temple. She greeted him with a rustle of welcome. Queen Serenia, too, had returned, seated on a low-root silver loom cradled in her lap. "We sensed your dream journey," Eldora said, "and wished you a gentle landing." Serenia added, "Let us weave intention into the newborn day." She invited Milo, and you, dear listener, to close eyes briefly and recall 3 kindness feathers from Oriel. With each memory, she pressed her shuttle. Click, pause, breathe. Threads of dawn gold joined threads of moon silver, forming a fabric that shimmered with possibility. Together they sipped Celestine's freshly warmed twilight bloom tea. The steam carried notes of lavender and first light citrus, encouraging slow awakening rather than abrupt rise. Milo found that every swallow echoed the harmonic quiet stone's resonance. Eldora guided a brief standing meditation. Feel souls on earth, spine lengthen, star shard glow behind sternum. Inhale calm, exhale gratitude to any corner of the world you choose. Birdsong multiplied, yet none of it broke the peace. It simply gilded it. Serenia gently folded the dawn weave, tucking it into Milo's satchel. "Share this serenity," she said, "in word, smile, or silence, whichever fits the moment best." Sunlight crested the eastern ridge, painting Sleepington in champagne gold. Villagers emerged, stretching like blossoms turned to warmth. Milo, carrying star shard, quill, and dawn weave, walked the lane with Serenia and Eldora's shadow sheltering overhead. At each doorstep he left a single hush petal, its scent awakened by morning rays, its color promising rest for the coming night. Near the riverbank he paused. Rillabelle glistened, and in her ripples he glimpsed your own reflection, dear dreamer, traveling beside him in spirit. He dipped the quill's tip into the river and wrote on the air, "May, quiet guide our steps today." The letters floated upward, transforming into translucent feathers that drifted across rooftops, settling wherever hearts felt hurried. A gentle bell rang from the village square, a reminder not of urgency, but of presence. Milo closed his eyes, tracing the spiral breath Vera had taught, out where tasks and plans awaited, back in where hush remained eternal. He felt the echo shell inside his chest, singing softly of every kind word ever offered to him. That song would follow each action, each conversation, like a soft harmony beneath the melody of living. Serenia placed a hand on his shoulder. "When night returns, new stories will gather," Eldora added, "and the valley will listen. So, as our tale pauses once more, feel the quill between your fingers, the star shard glowing in your own quiet chest. Breathe in, broad and gentle. Breathe out, slow and generous. Carry this hush into the bright hours ahead, knowing it will survive daylight and blossom again at dusk. Until we meet for the next chapter of Napoleon Bonus Sleep Stories, may your day be as calm as moonlit water, and your night as warm as a hush-petal dream. Dawn returned, flushing the cedars of Vesper with rose-gold light, yet the gardens were already alive with hush rather than bustle. Down by the newly sprouted stone-light sapling, Milo, Leora, and Maestra Nerine unfurled a parchment map so large it needed 4 smooth river stones to keep its corners from lifting in the breeze. Sleepington sat at the center like a calm heart. Silver ink radiated outward toward places whose names felt half-remembered. The Insomnia Barrens, the Delta of Echo, the Lanterning Isles. Serenia laid her moonlit loom atop the map. Every quiet realm is a star, she explained, fingers gliding over warp and weft. If we connect them, their lullabies will braid into something vaster than any single dream. She turned to Milo. You carry the star shard. Would you lead the first strand? Milo placed the crystal on the parchment. A soft beam extended northward, illuminating the Insomnia Barrens, an expanse said to shimmer beneath sleepless skies. Leora nodded, slinging her spool of lunar thread across one shoulder. We'll need new instruments of stillness, she said thoughtfully. Harmonies fit for harsher winds. Amberiel. The amber fox padded close, soft paws silent on the grass. From a pouch beneath his lute he produced a trio of wind keys, slender silver reeds capped with shells. Blow these where breezes waver, he sang, and they will tune themselves to the safest frequency. Milo accepted them with a grateful bow. That evening, the fellowship gathered beside a mirror-still pond. Eldora's projected branches formed an archway of light, a living portal humming with rooted songs. Serenia raised her shuttle. With each slide, a ribbon of silver unspooled, bridging pond surface to portal's heart. When the final thread locked into place, the arch shimmered open on a sand-blown horizon beneath violet dusk, the threshold of the Barrens. Milo inhaled. The scent beyond the portal held peppery dryness, tinged with petrichor, cracked earth yearning for rain. Leora squeezed his hand. Remember the spiral breath, she whispered, and together they stepped forward, followed by Amberiel's quiet paw steps and Narine's calm stride. The Barrens greeted them with silence so vast it bordered on roar. Dunes of silvery ash undulated like frozen surf. Above, constellations pulsed brighter than anywhere Milo had seen, as though the sky refused to blink. Yet in that unyielding brilliance lay the problem. Nothing here rested, not even the stars. They made camp in the lee of a stone outcrop shaped like a sleeping whale. Milo drove a wind key into the grid. A faint, wavering hum surfaced. Thin, restless. Leora unspooled lunar thread, anchoring it to the key's ring and to a second reed a dozen paces away. The wind caught, plucking the strand. Its pitch started frantic, then sagged toward steadiness. All night they stitched a veil of gentle drafts, crisscrossing thread between keys until a shimmering web spanned the outcrop. When dawn paled the desert, the Barrens' air felt heavier, yet also slower, as if the land had exhaled after moons of holding breath. Milo lay back on cool sand, star shard glowing softly on his chest, and for the first time here, the constellations dipped, eyelid-like, behind a gauze of morning cloud. The first strand is woven, he thought. Now the delta of Echo awaits. Dawn returned, flushing the cedars of Vesper with rose gold light, yet the gardens were already alive with hush rather than bustle. Down by the newly sprouted stone-light sapling, Milo, Leora, and Maestra Nerine unfurled a parchment map so large it needed 4 smooth river stones to keep its corners from lifting in the breeze. Sleepington sat at the center like a calm heart. Silver ink radiated outward toward places whose names felt half-remembered. The Insomnia Barrens, the Delta of Echo, the Lanterning Isles. Serenia laid her moonlit loom atop the map. Every quiet realm is a star, she explained, fingers gliding over warp and weft. If we connect them, their lullabies will braid into something vaster than any single dream. She turned to Milo. You carry the star shard. Would you lead the first strand? Milo placed the crystal on the parchment. A soft beam extended northward, illuminating the Insomnia Barrens, an expanse said to shimmer beneath sleepless skies. Leora nodded, slinging her spool of lunar thread across one shoulder. We'll need new instruments of stillness, she said thoughtfully. Harmonies fit for harsher winds. Amberiel. The amber fox padded close, soft paws silent on the grass. From a pouch beneath his lute he produced a trio of wind keys, slender silver reeds capped with shells. Blow these where breezes waver, he sang, and they will tune themselves to the safest frequency. Milo accepted them with a grateful bow. That evening, the fellowship gathered beside a mirror-still pond. Eldora's projected branches formed an archway of light, a living portal humming with rooted songs. Serenia raised her shuttle. With each slide, a ribbon of silver unspooled, bridging pond surface to portal's heart. When the final thread locked into place, the arch shimmered open on a sand-blown horizon beneath violet dusk, the threshold of the Barrens. Milo inhaled. The scent beyond the portal held peppery dryness, tinged with petrichor, cracked earth yearning for rain. Leora squeezed his hand. Remember the spiral breath, she whispered, and together they stepped forward, followed by Amberiel's quiet paw steps and Narine's calm stride. The Barrens greeted them with silence so vast it bordered on roar. Dunes of silvery ash undulated like frozen surf. Above, constellations pulsed brighter than anywhere Milo had seen, as though the sky refused to blink. Yet in that unyielding brilliance lay the problem. Nothing here rested, not even the stars. They made camp in the lee of a stone outcrop shaped like a sleeping whale. Milo drove a wind key into the grit. A faint, wavering hum surfaced. Thin, restless. Leora unspooled lunar thread, anchoring it to the key's ring and to a second reed a dozen paces away. The wind caught, plucking the strand. Its pitch started frantic, then sagged toward steadiness. All night they stitched a veil of gentle drafts, crisscrossing thread between keys until a shimmering web spanned the outcrop. When dawn paled the desert, the Barrens' air felt heavier, yet also slower, as if the land had exhaled after moons of holding breath. Milo lay back on cool sand, star shard glowing softly on his chest, and for the first time here the constellations dipped, eyelid-like, behind a gauze of morning cloud. The first strand is woven, he thought. Now the delta of echo awaits. The web they left behind thrummed faintly, a cradle song for dunes, as they traversed a winding canyon toward the delta. Gradually, the sand thinned, replaced by cracked clay that rang underfoot like distant kettle drums. Amberiel played quiet chords to match the cadence. embedding calm in each hollow tone. By dusk, a low thunder reached them, not from storm, but from chorus, ripples of overlapping voices, thousands strong, yet none distinct. They crested a rise to behold the delta of echo, an intricate braid of waterways, each channel lined with crystalline walls. Every word or footstep struck the facets, multiplied, bounced along liquid corridors, returning tenfold. The result was weary cacophony, vibrant but relentless. At a weather-worn wharf stood Keeper Solène, cloaked in echo-dampening moss. She bowed. "Welcome, tuners of silence. We've been speaking in murmurs for years, yet the reflections keep amplifying." Her eyes were ringed with sleepless shadows. Milo dipped the cuenco susurrante into delta water. The bowl quivered with overlapping syllables until it nearly vibrated from his grasp. Leora frowned. "We must give every sound a place to land, not to ricochet." She recalled the stone-light sapling, how its glow drew the eye inward. Perhaps the ear, too, needed an inner lantern. Together they rowed upriver to a small island where reeds grew in concentric rings. Amberial harvested the tallest stalks, then fashioned reed lanterns, hollow tubes whose inner walls he coated with oil of hush petal and lunar resin. Into each lantern they set a single wind key, tuned this time to a note lower than heartbeat. At sunset they paddled through the delta, anchoring lanterns at junctions where echoes clashed loudest. When Milo struck the star shard against a lantern rim, a soft luminescence awoke within, and the key's note unfurled, a deep sigh that coaxed the stray voices inward. Words reached a lantern, dissolved into gold dust, and drifted downward like spent breath. Keeper Solène listened, tears quickening as the ceaseless overlay eased into gentle layering. Voices now distinct, comprehensible, and finite. People along the banks discovered that soft speech traveled far without needing to shout. Birds synchronized their evening calls to the lantern tones, weaving new lullabies across the water. Before departing, Milo inscribed a single feather letter in the air. "Speak softly, and the world will lean closer." It floated to Solène, folding into her palm like silk. She pressed it to her ear, smiled, and for the first time in seasons said thank you at normal volume. Her words carrying clearly, yet not rebounding. The next destination shimmered south. The verdant quiets, a rainforest rumored to hold mirrors of breath. Clear ponds reflecting inner states more vividly than faces. Journeying upriver, they entered cathedral-high canopies where sunlight dripped through leaves in slow honey shafts. Beneath layered birdsong lay an undercurrent of restlessness. Frogs croaked in jittery patterns. Breeze rustled leaves in rhythmic bursts. The mirrors of breath, when they came upon one, showed waters flickering with fragmented images, thoughts skittering like startled fish. Guardian Tuala, whose cloak was woven of orchid fiber, explained, "Visitors arrive burdened. The ponds emulate their clutter and broadcast it to every creature. We need a tune of clearing." She offered a basket of heart lily seeds said to open only in pure silence. Leora suggested planting seeds around each mirror, but they required a catalyst. Milo produced the quill Oriel had gifted, dipped it into lanterning ink, and wrote in the air, "Breathe, pause, release." The words floated onto the water's surface, dissolving into concentric rings. Where rings touched shore, lilies sprouted instantly. unfolding white petals with pink centers shaped like tiny spirals. The lilies exhaled a perfume so subtle it could be sensed only on the pause of breath. Frogs quieted, leaves stilled, and reflections in the pond smoothed into single, undisturbed images. Travelers arriving later found themselves slowed upon approach, compelled to match the lily's breathing rhythm. Songs of the canopy blended into long, harmonious chords. As thanks, Tuala gifted Milo a mirror pebble, a droplet of solid water, capable of reflecting the calmest moment one had ever felt. "Use it in times of doubt," she said. Milo tested it. Eldora's branches, swaying under starlight, shimmered within, accompanied by the faint hum of roots. Assurance settled in his chest like warm tea. 4 strands now glowed on Serenia's loom. One final spark on the map awaited. The summit of quiet thunder, atop the highest peak overlooking every woven realm. There, the constellation concert would be born. Their ascent began at dawn 2 days later, trail spiraling through mist-wreathed cliffs. Thunder rumbled overhead, yet no storm appeared, only pulsing clouds that glowed from within. Grom's moonglass token warmed in Milo's pocket, sensing kinship with ancient stone. Halfway up, the party encountered chorus stones, giant slabs that emitted low drums whenever footsteps fell too heavy. Nareen led them in a mindful march, heel, toe, breath, taming the rumble into a meditative bass line. Higher still, wind funnels howled between ice pinnacles. Amberiel planted wind keys. Their countertones bent the gales into soft organ sighs. At last they reached a plateau, where sky stretched close enough to touch. Constellations shone even in daylight, and in their midst hovered the celestial prism, an iridescent crystal the size of a cottage. Serenia approached, loom in hand. "When all strands meet here," she said, "the prism will refract them into a symphony, audible across worlds." Milo anchored the star shard atop a dais. Leora secured lunar threads to opal ringlets along the prism's base. Keeper Solen's reed lanterns lined the edge, while Captain Liss hoisted sea kites woven from dawn weave. Tuala planted heart lilies in pockets of alpine moss, their perfume mingling with frost. Then, in unison, each realm's representative offered a single sustained note. Grom's deep hum carried on stone. Veyra's spiral breath as rising breeze. Delta lanterns sigh. Ocean hush. Rainforest chord. Cedared hush of vesper. Midnight whisper of Sleepington itself. The prism drank them, facets igniting in hues unseen. Silvers deeper than moon, blues wider than sea, golds softer than dusk. A resonant glow burst skyward, weaving luminous paths between constellations. Across valleys and dunes, islands and forests, people looked up to see rivers of light singing overhead. A harmony so gentle, it stilled every racing heart. Babies lulled to effortless sleep. Elders felt decades lift from shoulders. Even restless winds paused to listen. Milo felt the vibration travel through souls, spine, skull, until his thoughts rested in complete stillness. He glanced at his friends, Leora's eyes reflecting Aurora, Ambariel's paws quiet on lute strings, Serenia's smile like new moonrise, and knew the brotherhood of tuned silences had fulfilled its first oath. Yet the prism's song was not an ending, but an invitation. Paths of repose now spanned the heavens, waiting for new guardians, fresh melodies, deeper quiet. Milo closed his eyes, held the mirror pebble, and saw within it the image of you, dear listener, breathing slowly beside Eldora's oak. "Every calm heart is a star," he whispered, "and every star a note in the concert yet to come." The summit wind fluttered, not with thunder, but with applause softer than snow. As our story pauses, for no true tale of peace ever truly ends, feel that hush shimmer down into your own chest. Breathe in as constellations brighten. Breathe out as they drift across the sky, carrying lullabies to every place night can find. The Constellation Concert lingered in the sky for 3 full nights, each evening softer and more luminous than the last. When its final chord settled into silence, the brotherhood of tuned silences harvested the threads of light that draped across the plateau like gentle banners. Serenia wound them onto crystal spools. Every shimmer carried a memory of dusk over the barrens, tide hush from the isles, reed lantern sighs, and lily breath calm. Milo, Leora, Ambariel, Nerine, Solène, Tuala, and Captain Lys began the descent by moonglow. The prism's glow escorted them, sending firefly wisps to light each step. Halfway down, the travelers paused where alpine moss softened the cliff's edge. There they forged a new pledge. Once every turning of the silver moon, each guardian would journey to another's homeland to learn fresh lullabies and renew old weavings. The pact was sealed by touching their tokens: star shard, lunar thread, wind key, cuenco susurrante, reed lantern, mirror pebble, and a droplet of stonelight sap, so that their hum blended into a single vibration felt rather than heard. As valleys widened below, Sleepington's familiar lavender horizon appeared, and Milo's chest filled with buoyant warmth. Yet he noticed a new undertone in the quiet, a distant resonance, not of disquiet, but of anticipation, like an empty cradle waiting for a child. Eldora's branches, though projected miles away, rustled in response, fluttering a welcome home that also hinted at fresh purpose. They reached the root-lit portal, crafted by Eldora's illusionary archway. Before stepping through, Serenia extended a skein of constellation thread to Milo. "Take this," she said, "and weave a pathway of gentle steps from Sleepington to every realm we've touched. It will guide weary souls who seek calm, but know not where to begin." Milo bowed, tucking the radiant thread beside his star shard. When he emerged onto Sleepington's moon-drenched green, the hush-petal vines had bloomed en masse, shimmering like miniature moons. Cats wandered between stems, purring rhythmic undersongs. Villagers gathered in silent circles, feeling the far-off harmony still humming through their bones. Eldora lowered a limb so Milo could press his forehead to her bark. The oak's heartwood was warm, alive with the concert's afterglow. That night, beneath lanterns folded from dawn weave, Holmes Meadow became an open-air dormitory for dreamers. Some lay on hush-petal pillows, others on quilts embroidered with lunar thread. Milo walked among them, gently tugging a constellation strand behind him. Where the strand touched turf, tiny glass roots sprouted, pulsing stars beneath soil, marking the first beats of the pathway of gentle steps. Sleepington slept deeper than ever, but Milo lay awake a while, sensing that the cradle hum he'd heard upon descent was leading somewhere beyond even Eldora's valley. As he closed his eyes, the mirror pebble in his pocket warmed, projecting Serenia's smile on the inside of his dreams, and whispering, "The universe, too, needs lullabies." For 3 days they climbed terraced cliffs stitched with bellflowers, whose petals rang soft chimes when brushed. Yet each mile closer to the forge brought harder clangs, notes jarred and too sharp for sleep. Smoke plumes pulsed from crimson chimneys, shimmering with sparks that burst like waking alarms. Inside the forge city, hammers struck anvils the size of dragon shells. Every blow cast ripples of sound through bronze ducts shaped as horns. The ducts funneled clangor into energy crystals used to warm homes at night. But the cadence had lost its balanced interval, generating restless heat that pricked skin rather than comforted it. Master Artifact's Brona, arms burnished from firelight, explained their dilemma. Ore veins now vibrated differently, altering metal's resonance. Sleep across the city had dwindled to bare hours. Milo placed the mirror pebble against an anvil. The surface splintered with chaotic reflections. Anvil blows mirrored as jagged echoes. Ambariel proposed forging a silence alloy, mixing ore dust with powdered hush petal and lunar resin. Forge smiths were skeptical, until Nareen demonstrated the resin's cooling properties by calming a flickering furnace flame. Brona granted them a secondary forge chamber to experiment. For 9 hours, the group worked. Leora spun lunar thread into molten strands. Tuala whispered rhythmic breathing patterns that steadied hammer strikes. Solen installed reed lantern baffles inside horn ducts. Milo set wind keys under bellows to transmute harsh gusts into low drones. With each procedure, clangs softened until they rang like temple bells heard from distant valleys. At midnight, the first silence alloy ingot cooled. Brona struck it gently. A tone emerged, rich, deep, settling in the belly like a satisfied sigh. They recast anvils using the alloy and fitted horn ducts with hush lining. By dawn, the forge produced power crystals that glowed amber instead of searing scarlet, radiating warmth akin to feline purrs. The city's workers gathered in the central foundry square. Some nodded off during the demonstration, soot-smudged faces serene. Brona laughed quietly for the first time in months. As tribute, she gifted Milo a soundsmith's circlet, a thin band of alloy that allowed its wearer to perceive the resonance of any object touched. He placed it atop his brow, hearing Eldora's far-off root hum echo faintly inside his skull. That afternoon, the compass of silent footfalls adjusted its needle north by east, pointing toward a drifting realm seldom charted on solid maps, the Cloudwalk sanctuaries, floating plateaus where monks cultivated weather dreams. Milo sensed the cradle hum again, stronger. Perhaps the sky itself awaited a new lullaby. A sky ship from the Isles, the Aurorian Whisper, sailed the Brotherhood through updrafts of rainbow mist. The Cloudwalk sanctuaries appeared as colossal lily pads of marble, tethered to thunderheads with braided lightning ropes. Monastic weather wardens moved in measured circles, guiding breezes through crystal chimes suspended from palisades. But lately, thunder spoke over them in fitful grumbles, and the chimes clattered a frenetic counterpoint. Head Warden Zephyra greeted them on a terrace woven of windsilk. She demonstrated the crisis. Clouds had absorbed too many unspoken ambitions from below, swelling with momentum. When these aspiration squalls burst, they drenched valleys in anxiety storms, torrents that kept everyone awake, hearts racing without cause. Milo removed the soundsmith's circlet and placed fingertips to the terrace floor. He heard thunder's restlessness humming below note, like a cello string drawn too taut. Ambariel suggested heart lily essence to temper ambition with acceptance. Leora proposed weaving a sky loom to vent surfeit aspirations into quiet auroras before storms formed. Under Zephyra's guidance, they erected tall frames across 3 cloud isles. Leora stretched lunar thread between silver pylons. Captain Lise anchored rainbow mist sails that would capture gusts. Nerine distilled heart lily vapor into pearl orbs placed at nodal joints. When the squalls approached, brooding masses of electric mauve, Milo planted wind keys at the base of pylon cables, tuned to harmonize downward rush with upward exhale. The first squall collided with the sky loom and unraveled. Surplus ambition streamed through thread into wide ribbons of color, painting silent auroras across daylight sky. Those below witnessed billowing curtains of jade and rose that rippled for hours, coaxing towns into slow breathing they did not fully understand but deeply felt. Zephyra bowed, offering a feather of soft lightning, capable of grounding any worry into restful pulse when tapped to the chest. Milo tucked it beside the star shard. Auroras faded into evening blue, leaving behind clouds that rumbled contentedly like giants mid-nap. Late that night, as Brotherhood members rested on wind cushions, Serenia, who had shadowed their journey through moon dreams, materialized in silver veil. She said only, "The cradle hum you hear is the universe's own heartbeat. A final horizon awaits, the silent rim where time lights flicker at cosmos's edge. You must carry lullabies there, so newborn stars learn quiet from their first pulse." Preparations lasted a single serene cycle. Eldora bestowed a seed cone of boundless root song. Grom shaped a moonglass ocarina, tuned to cosmic overtones. The librarium maps plotted an ever-extending pathway arching beyond constellations. Forge City hammered star sails of silence alloy. Cloudwalk warden monks braided lightning ropes into starlit rigging. The Aurorian Whisper was refit as a star skiff, now christened the Dream Bearer. Its hull radiated hush-petal glaze, mast crowned with stone-light quintessence. Decks inlaid with reed lantern veins so footsteps rang like distant harp notes. At embarkation, every realm sent a gift of hush. Jars of delta psi, Baron's veil mesh, sea ink scrolls, mirror pebble dust, and thousand-folded hush-petal blooms. Milo stepped aboard last. The compass of silent footfalls glowed white for the first time, needle spinning without settling. As if beyond the edge, new orientation must be invented. He affixed it to the helm regardless, trusting stillness to guide when directions dissolved. Serenia's loom unfurled across the sky, forming a portal of liquid starlight. Villagers, monks, smiths, cartographers, gardeners, and night singers gathered along cliffs and clouds to watch. Eldora's leaves shimmered emerald, bending overhead to form a living blessing arch. A hush swept the assembly, not forced. It settled naturally, like snow upon rooftop. Milo spoke to you, listening across pages and pillows. You are part of this lullaby now. Whenever you breathe calmly, your exhale becomes wind in our star sails. When sleep claims you gently, your dream joins the charter guiding us. He touched the star shard. Its glow mirrored in countless eyes across realms. With a slow creak, softer than dawn, the dream bearer slipped through the starlight veil. Behind, auroras curled farewell. Ahead stretched boundless velvet filled with seedling suns winking awake. The vessel's hush-petal glaze emitted a hymn so quiet it was felt more than heard, a thrum that smoothed space like silk. Gazing aft, Milo saw the pathway of gentle steps flourishing, threads knitting realms into constellation lace. Gazing forward, he perceived possibility. cosmic cradles waiting for first songs. He lifted the moonglass ocarina to his lips. A single note drifted outward, twining with root song seed, feather of soft lightning, reed lantern pulse, and silent alloy resonance, until it became something altogether new, the lullaby of a universe learning to rest. And as this note spiraled into the infinite, you felt it, perhaps as a warm weight behind your eyes, a sigh loosening shoulders, or a hush-petal feather settling on your heartbeat. For the journey continues wherever calm is welcomed, and stories, like stars, burn brighter in darkness made gentle. The dream-bearer slid along an invisible tide, its hush-petal hull shimmering like the inside of a sleeping pearl. No true wind filled the sails here. Instead, every slow exhale of every sleeper across the far-linked realms whispered through unseen channels, curling into the star sails as a patient propulsion. Milo stood at the helm beside Leora, star shard glowing on his breast, Soundsmith's circlet cupping his brow. Through the band, he heard a music deeper than any river drone, the quiet heartbeat of the cosmos itself, steady, unhurried, enveloping. Constellations behind them condensed into a silver spine that marked the pathway of gentle steps trailing homeward. Ahead opened a soft darkness lit by seedlings of light drifting like dandelion seeds. This was the threshold the maps had called the Silent Rim, the place where unshaped time met the earliest breath of newborn stars, where lullabies carried more weight than gravity. They sailed for what could have been hours or seasons. Time was shy here, reluctant to measure itself too loudly, until the compass of silent footfalls quivered, then steadied, its needle pointing toward an opaline halo gleaming in the vast. At first, the halo resembled a perfect ring, a circlet of milk-white luminescence set against velvet dark. But as the dream-bearer approached, details revealed themselves. The ring was a cradle, wrought of stardust strands and frostlight, webbed and woven around an egg of incandescent potential. Every few breaths, the egg pulsed, shedding ripples that rustled the rigging like gentle thunder. Noreen, leaning over the rail, let out a breath that formed twilight mist. "A star nest," she murmured. "Not yet aflame, yet alive." Serenia's silver loom flickered in her hands as if recognizing kinship. Its threads thrummed back, eager to meet those embryonic heartbeats. Captain Lease issued a wordless command, and the crew spilled across deck and spar, furling the mainsail and lowering the anchor of stonelight in a hush respectful of nursery hush. The ship drifted to the cradle's edge, settling like a feather on still water. Milo closed his eyes, opening inner ears. He heard the unlit stars' dreams, a tapestry of notes not yet sung, the yearning chords of future warmth. But beneath, woven faintly, trembled a countertone, a restless rattle, as though uncertainty bit at the edges of possibility. Leora touched Milo's forearm. "I hear it too," she whispered. Doubts carried here from minds back home, perhaps. Hopes entwined with fear. Serenia stepped forward, loom shining. "We must soothe it before the first ignition," she said, "or the light it becomes will always carry a tremor." To weave quiet into the very shell of a star required tools beyond mortal measure. Yet the Brotherhood possessed gifts precisely assembled through their travels. Ambariel strummed a three-note motif on his lute, each note drawn long as moonlight. The reed lanterns across the rigging answered in sympathetic glow. Solen unfurled delta scrolls of hush ink, releasing letters that hovered like gentle moths. ready to land upon chafed places in the ether. Tuala placed heart lily seeds at compass points across the deck. The seeds blossomed instantly, white petals inhaling cosmic worry and exhaling the perfume of unburdened rest. Brona hefted tongs glowing with silence alloy and set to forging tuning forks tuned to the exact interval between the egg's thrum and the cosmos's hush. Nerine brewed a vapor of twilight bloom, steeped with a drop of ocean hush, letting it creep outward in nimbus plumes. Each ingredient in itself was small, but together they formed an orchestra of hush unlike any sung before. Milo, star shard in hand, stepped onto a plank lowered to the cradle webbing. The moment his boot touched the lattice dust, light filaments awakened, spiraling beneath the boards like bioluminescence in tide. He whispered the spiral breath, inhaling slow into the soles of his feet, exhaling through the crown of his head, allowing the breath to braid into the cradle lines. Leora followed, lunar spool at her waist. She passed thread to Milo, and together they began knitting a cocoon of stillness, over-under, loop and wrap, each pass accompanied by wind key sighs and mirror pebble reflections of Eldora's oak swaying under midnight. Serenia directed from the rail, loom flashing arcs of silver that leapt from shuttle to star egg, lacing the handmade hush to the luminous shell. Hours, or the silent equivalent, passed. The restless undertone diminished, but a final surge remained, pulsing like a drum too rapid. The soundsmith's circlet vibrated, cueing Milo that the root cause lay deeper. Perhaps not within the star nest itself, but echoing from beyond the rim. He gazed outward. There, barely perceptible, floated dark motes, unanchored memories of sleepless worries, flung by anxious dreamers so far that Pathweave hadn't caught them. They drifted here, at the edge, seeking brightness to cling to. Serenia frowned. We must shepherd them home, or transform them, else they'll mar every birth that follows. Captain Liz swung down a rope and guided the dream-bearer in slow orbit, sails extended like wings of quiet. Ambariel released a melody of invitation, soft, melancholic, yet ending with a note of acceptance. The motes stirred, drawn toward sound. Nerine and Selene raised reed lantern beacons. The motes, curious, entered the lanterns, each shrinking to a dust spark against the hush glow. Lantern after lantern filled, and within, anxious memories dissolved into soot of possibility, leaving behind only faint warmth. When the last mote settled, quiet reigned absolute. The cradle's pulse evened into rhythmic waves, matching the lullaby of Helm's heart. Bowl-shaped constellations overhead brightened, reflecting hope for ignition unmarred. Brona, sweating radiant droplets, set the final tuning fork upright in the cradle's core. It resonated with a low, velvety chord. Serenia caught the cord on her loom and fixed it into a warp of 50 silver lines. Then she wove crosswise strands of delta ink moths and lunar thread, locking them into a tapestry sheet as flawless as still water. She whispered, the swaddling quiet. Milo lifted the swaddling quiet above his head. The star nest's shell cracked, not in violence, but like the gentle breaking of dawn, a luminous fissure through which emerged a sphere of molten pearl. Upon contact with the tapestry, the newborn star quieted further, glow intensifying yet changing hue, from sharp white to candle-soft gold. It hummed, a single note balanced between lullaby and promise. As the swaddling quiet melted into the star, ignition commenced. Light unfurled petal by petal, radiant yet subdued, as if remembering the hush that midwifed it. Twin coronas bloomed around the orb, encasing it in a double halo of silver and rose. Milo felt a weightless warmth flood through him, not burning, but embracing, as though every restful night of his life suddenly cuddled into his ribs. Tears glimmered down Leora's cheeks. Amberiel's lute chords faltered into reverent silence. A wave of golden hush spread from the star, rushing outward across the rim like sunrise across sleeping fields. It collided softly with the dream-bearer, kissing its hull, then carried onward, touching previously fledgling lights and still forming nebulae, embedding them with seed memories of calm. Far behind, telescopes in Sleepington would, centuries later, detect a band of unusually steady stars. They would call it the Cradle Belt, citing its uncanny harmony of rotation. None would know fully of Milo and companions dancing hush into cosmic birth. The star stabilized, no longer a fluttering egg, but a calm torch awaiting its constellation. Yet the cradle itself began dissolving, its dust streaming toward the star in glistening ribbons until only cosmic filaments remained, drifting like dew in sunlight. Captain Lease signaled. They should return before the invisible tide shifted. But Milo gestured for a final task. With the circlet's resonance, he perceived a small echo. Some of the cradle's dust still vibrated with restless potential. "We can plant this dust back home," he said. "Let it grow into night gardens that bloom calm to anyone who walks beneath." They filled star jars with the dust and stowed them in the hold. As Serenia guided the loom to close its last thread, she paused, listening. A newborn star's first voice sang back, calm gratitude in a language of photon and frequency. She smiled. It will watch over the pathway and never forget the hush that nurtured it. The dream-bearer eased away, sails unfurling to catch the universal after-sigh. At the helm, Milo noted the compass of silent footfalls pointing inward, back toward stitched realms. But a subtle second needle had emerged, invisible until now, aiming further into the unknown. Serenia laid a hand on his shoulder. "One path leads home," she said. "The other, to places even silence hasn't reached. Both matter." Milo exhaled, letting the decision rest unsolved for the moment. Calm did not rush. Returning first to Sleepington felt right. The crew sailed along constellations with new quiet encoded. Night skies above each realm brightened marginally, gifting richer dreamlight. When the dream-bearer hovered above Eldora's valley, dawn approached, yet hush petals glowed blue in the pre-dawn like stars fallen upon grass. The ship anchored mid-air, stone-light anchor humming against morning wind, and everyone descended by rope ladders into a festival of silence. Villagers woke almost unconsciously, smiles unfolding as if they'd known of this arrival in their sleep. Milo presented jars of cradle dust to Eldora. The oak's trunk pulsed sapphire, absorbing their gift. Through her roots, dust traveled into soil, preparing garden plots for night lily seedlings unborn. Brona's silence. Alloy circled the base of Eldora's trunk, forging a ring that would reverberate lullaby deeper with every breeze. Children approached, whisper curious. Leora handed them lunar ribbons to place along the pathway edges, marking safe routes for wanderers to strolling dreamers. That evening, under lanterns fed by reed glow, Serenia addressed all gathered realms, some present in person, others projected in shimmer glyphs above hush-petal beds. "Tonight," she said, voice gentler than wind through feathers, "we celebrate not simply a birth of a star, but the understanding that rest is a force equal to flame. We will build sanctuaries of quiet across each horizon, weaving dust of cosmic lullabies with human kindness. In anxious hearts they will root. In tired minds they will shine." To inaugurate, Milo and Leora unveiled the forge circlet of stillness they had set in the forge city but saved until now. The crown of gentle hours. Rather than worn upon one head, it was placed upright in Eldora's highest branch where moonlight could soak it nightly. From the crown trailed gossamer strands of constellation, thread down to the valley floor. Every hush petal linked into the net, and as dusk thickened, the net pulsed. Everyone present felt a ripple, like pages turning softly in a library after hours, slide across skin and into marrow. A collective breath released. Even the far-off brook slowed its babble to appreciative murmur. As our tale gently comes to an end, dear listener, may you too find peace, patience, and restful dreams, guided by the gentle whispers of Sleepington and Lunaire. Feel your breath deepen, your mind calm, and your body relax. Rest easy tonight, knowing that gentle dreams await. Good night, and sweet dreams from Napoleon Bonasleep Stories.